Hello there, wonderful listeners. Welcome to another fascinating episode of Background Interview. I'm your host, Lily, and we're here to take you on an extraordinary journey through history, philosophy, and the human experience. Whether you're commuting to work, doing chores around the house, or just taking a moment to pause in your busy day, this is your perfect companion for learning while you live. Our show reaches curious minds across the globe in multiple languages, and today, you're part of something truly special. How's everyone feeling today? Ready for a conversation that might just change how you see the world? I was just thinking this morning about how we all wear different masks depending on who we're with. I tried ordering coffee in my serious interviewer voice, and the barista looked at me like I was auditioning for Shakespeare. Now today we have someone truly extraordinary joining us. A figure who has fascinated and mystified people for over a century. A man whose very name evokes mystery, power, and controversy.
Good evening, dear souls. I come to you as I have always come, as a simple man seeking to share truth with those who hunger for it.
Please, make yourself comfortable. Our listeners are absolutely captivated already.
I am Grigori Yefimovich, though history has given me many names. Some called me Starets, others, less charitable titles. I was born in the vast wilderness of Siberia, where the earth teaches you that survival demands both strength and faith.
You know what strikes me most about meeting you? There's this intensity in your presence, but also something almost childlike, like someone who's seen profound mysteries, but never lost their wonder. Grigori, let's start with something that's always fascinated me. You experienced what many would call a near-death experience early in your life. Can you tell us about that moment when you first glimpsed what lay beyond the veil?
You speak of the moment when the earthly Grigori died and something new was born. I was perhaps 18, lost in the wilderness of my own making, drinking, fighting, living as a beast rather than a man created in God's image.
What happened in that pivotal moment?
I fell through the ice of a river, trying to save my brother Dmitri. The cold. It was not just the water, you understand. It was the cold of seeing my own soul laid bare. As I sank beneath the surface, I saw my life, not as I had lived it, but as it could be lived.
That must have been terrifying.
Terror, yes, but also liberation. In that darkness beneath the ice, I heard a voice, perhaps the Virgin Mary, perhaps my own soul crying out. It said, "Grigori, you have tasted death, so that you might truly live. Go now, and help others find the light."
And your brother? Did you save him?
I pulled him from the water, yes, but he died days later from pneumonia. I learned then that sometimes God calls us to witness suffering we cannot prevent. This became the foundation of everything that followed.
Tell us about your childhood in Pokrovskoye. What was it like growing up in that remote Siberian village?
Imagine a place where winter can kill you with its breath, where the nearest neighbor might be miles away, where the aurora borealis dances overhead like God's own theater. We lived close to the bone, close to nature, close to the divine.
Your family, they must have been quite remarkable to raise someone like you.
My father Yefim was a man of the earth, a peasant who understood that the soil teaches patience and humility. My mother, she died when I was young, but she left me with something precious, the ability to see beyond what others could see. Even as a child, I could sense things. When horses were ill, I would lay hands on them, and they would recover. When neighbors lost livestock, I could somehow divine where they had wandered. The villagers, they didn't know whether to praise me or fear me.
That must have been isolating for a young person.
Isolation breeds either madness or insight. For me it bred a hunger. A terrible, beautiful hunger to understand why I was different, why I could feel the pain and joy of others as if it were my own.
There are stories about your youth that paint you as quite wild. Drinking, stealing, general troublemaking. How do you reconcile that with your spiritual calling?
Ah, you touch upon the great paradox of my existence. Listen carefully. The path to divine light often leads through the deepest darkness. I was not born holy. I had to wrestle holiness from the very depths of sin.
That's a fascinating perspective. Can you elaborate?
Think of it this way. How can a man truly appreciate the warmth of the sun if he has never known the bitter cold of winter? How can one understand mercy without first understanding judgment? I dove headfirst into every temptation, every vice, so that I might emerge with true understanding. The villagers called me Rasputin, the debauched one. But what they saw as corruption, I saw as necessary education. Every night of drunken revelry taught me about the hollowness of earthly pleasure. Every act of rebellion showed me the futility of fighting against divine will.
So your darker period was actually part of your spiritual journey?
Precisely. I learned that sin and redemption are not opposites. They are dance partners. One cannot exist without the other. This understanding would later help me comfort Tsarinas and peasants alike, because I knew their struggles from the inside.
That's such a unique theological perspective. When did you first feel called to leave that life behind?
It was after my brother's death. After that moment beneath the ice, I realized that my wildness was not serving God or man, so I made a choice that shocked everyone who knew me. I went to the Verkhoturya monastery.
Tell us about that transformation. What was it like in the monastery?
The monastery was my cocoon. I went there as a caterpillar of chaos and emerged, well, perhaps not a butterfly, but something with wings nonetheless. The monks taught me to read the Holy Scriptures, though my reading was always unconventional.
Unconventional how?
I saw things in the text that troubled the traditional fathers. I spoke of a Christ who was both divine and desperately human, who understood temptation because he had felt it. I spoke of a God who loved us, not despite our sins, but because our sins made redemption possible.
That must have caused some controversy.
Oh, such controversy. They whispered that I was influenced by the Klisti sect, those who believed that one must sin in order to be forgiven. Perhaps they were right, perhaps not. Labels matter little when the heart seeks truth. But the monastery gave me something invaluable. It taught me that spiritual power must be earned through suffering, through questioning, through the courage to stand alone with God when all others turn away.
And then you began your wandering period, your pilgrimage years. What called you to that path?
The walls of the monastery, however holy, began to feel like a cage. I heard a voice, whether from heaven or from my own soul, who can say? That told me, Grigori, truth is not found in books alone, but in the living hearts of people. Go and learn from the world.
Where did your travels take you?
I walked thousands of miles across the Russian Empire and beyond, to the holy sites of Mount Athos in Greece, to Jerusalem where Christ himself walked. But the most sacred moments happened in the humblest places, sharing bread with starving families, comforting mothers who had lost children, praying with criminals who had lost hope. In each place I encountered the same truth. People are hungry, not just for food, but for meaning, for connection, for someone to see their suffering and say, "You are not alone."
What did you learn about yourself during those years?
I learned that I possessed a gift and a curse. I could feel the pain of others as if it were my own. When I met a sick child, my own body would ache. When I encountered despair, darkness would flood my soul. But this sensitivity also allowed me to offer genuine comfort. I discovered that healing comes not from magical powers, but from the simple act of truly seeing another person, of believing in their capacity for redemption when they have forgotten it themselves.
During your travels, you witnessed tremendous social inequality. How did that affect your worldview?
Ah, this is where my heart broke open like an overripe fruit. I saw nobles living in palaces, while children froze in the streets outside their gates. I saw priests hoarding gold while their flocks went hungry. I saw soldiers dying for wars they didn't understand, ordered by men who would never taste battle.
That must have been radicalizing.
It was illuminating. I understood then that Russia was a nation divided against itself, the rich growing richer on the backs of the poor, the powerful growing more powerful by keeping others powerless. This is not God's way. But I also saw something else. I saw that both the oppressor and the oppressed were trapped in their roles, neither truly free. The nobleman was as much a prisoner of his privilege as the peasant was of his poverty.
How did that understanding shape your later ministry?
It taught me that true healing must address not just individual souls but the sickness of society itself. When I later gained influence in the court, I tried to use it to bridge these terrible divides. Sometimes I succeeded, often I failed.
Let's talk about your healing practices. What exactly did you do when someone came to you seeking help?
First, I would look into their eyes. Truly look, not just glance. The eyes are windows to the soul, and in them I could see not just the illness of the body, but the illness of the spirit that often caused it.
Can you walk us through a typical healing session?
I would begin with prayer, not the formal prayers of the church, but conversations with God as natural as talking to a beloved friend. Then I would lay my hands upon the person and, how to explain this? I would pour my own life force into them. You see, I believed then and I believe now that we are all connected by invisible threads of divine energy. When someone is ill, those threads have become tangled or broken. My role was to help restore the connection.
What about your ability to seemingly heal the Tsarevich Alexei's hemophilia episodes?
Ah, little Alexei, such a beautiful child, trapped in a body that betrayed him at every turn. When I first met him, he was pale as winter snow, bleeding internally, dying slowly while his parents watched in helpless agony. I did not heal his hemophilia. That was beyond any mortal power, but I could ease his pain, calm his fear, and most importantly, I could give his mother Alexandra hope, when hope seemed impossible.
How exactly did you accomplish this?
Through what some might call hypnosis, others might call faith, I would speak to Alexei in a low, soothing voice, telling him stories of brave Cossack heroes, of magical forests where pain could not enter. As his mind relaxed, his body would follow. But the real healing happened through his mother. When Alexandra's panic subsided, when her faith was restored, the entire household would calm. A mother's serenity is the most powerful medicine any child can receive.
This brought you to the attention of the royal family. How did that first encounter come about?
It was 1905 and Russia was in turmoil. Revolution in the streets, defeat in war with Japan, the people crying out for change. Into this chaos came whispers of a Siberian holy man who could work miracles.
Who made the introduction?
Through a chain of connections, Bishop Theophan, who recognized something in me, and later, Anna Virabova, the Tsarina's dearest friend. Anna was a soul in torment when I met her, convinced she was unworthy of love. Through our conversations, she found peace, and she wanted to share that gift with her beloved, Alexandra. When I first entered the Alexander Palace, I felt the weight of centuries of tradition, of power built upon the backs of millions, but I also felt something else. Two parents, desperate to save their dying child, willing to turn to anyone who might offer hope.
What was that first meeting with the Tsar and Tsarina like?
Nicholas was skeptical, as any father would be when a strange peasant claims he can help where doctors have failed. But Alexandra, her eyes held such pain, such desperate love, she would have bargained with the devil himself to save her son. I spoke to them not as an emperor and empress, but as Nikolai and Alex, frightened parents who needed someone to share their burden. In that moment, all the barriers of class and protocol fell away. We were simply human beings, united in love for a suffering child.
How did your relationship with the family develop from there?
Slowly, carefully. Each time young Alexem faced a crisis, they would summon me. Each time I was able to help, their trust grew. But it was not just about healing. They were profoundly isolated, surrounded by courtiers who told them only what they wanted to hear. I offered them something precious and rare, honest conversation. I spoke to them about their people's suffering, about the need for reform, about the spiritual emptiness that was devouring the nobility from within.
As your influence grew, so did the opposition. How did you handle the increasing criticism and suspicion?
This is where my story becomes tragic. The very gifts that allowed me to help the royal family also made me a target. Courtiers who had spent years manipulating the Tsar suddenly found their access blocked by a peasant who spoke uncomfortable truths.
The rumors about your behavior became quite scandalous.
Some were true, some were wildly exaggerated, others were complete fabrications. But here is what my critics could never understand. I was not trying to be a conventional saint. I was trying to be authentically human in a world that demanded pretense. Yes, I drank. Yes, I sought the company of women. Yes, I enjoyed the pleasures of the flesh. But I did these things openly, honestly, without hypocrisy. How many of my critics could say the same?
You've mentioned that you saw this as part of your spiritual path. Can you elaborate on that philosophy?
Listen carefully. I believed that God loved me not despite my sins, but including them. My appetites, my passions, my very human failings were all part of the divine plan. To deny them would be to deny the fullness of creation.
That's quite different from traditional Christian teaching.
Traditional teaching often creates distance between man and God, making the divine seem cold and unreachable. I preached a God who was intimately involved in every aspect of human experience, the sacred and the profane, the pure and the corrupted. When a woman came to me seeking comfort, and our comfort became physical, this was not a betrayal of the divine. It was a celebration of the divine spark that exists in all loving connection between souls.
How did you reconcile this with your role as spiritual advisor to the royal family?
I never hid who I was from them. They knew of my reputation, my controversies, but they also knew that my love for them and their children was genuine. Sometimes love requires us to accept the whole person, darkness and light together. Besides, who was I to judge? The Tsar commanded armies that slaughtered thousands. The Tsarina hoarded jewels while her people starved. We were all sinners seeking redemption in our own ways.
The outbreak of World War I seemed to mark a turning point in your story. How did you view Russia's entry into the war?
I was one of the few voices that spoke against it from the beginning. I saw this war as a catastrophe that would devour a generation of young men and bring nothing but grief to the mothers of Russia.
Did you share these concerns with the royal family?
Oh, I pleaded with them. I went down on my knees before Nicholas and begged him not to mobilize the army. I told him that this war would not bring glory but ruin, that it would cost him his throne and his family their lives. But the machinery of war was already in motion. The generals wanted their moment of glory. The ministers spoke of national honor. My voice of caution was drowned out by the drums of nationalism.
When the Tsar left to take personal command of the armies, you found yourself with unprecedented influence over domestic policy through the Tsarina. How did you handle that responsibility?
It was both a blessing and a curse. Alexandra turned to me not just for spiritual guidance, but for practical advice about governing. A simple peasant from Siberia, suddenly helping to run an empire. I tried to use this influence for good, to appoint ministers who cared about the common people, to push for reforms that might ease the suffering of the masses. But I was navigating a world of court intrigue that I barely understood.
Many historians argue that your political influence during this period was ultimately harmful to Russia.
Perhaps they are right. I was a spiritual healer thrust into the role of political advisor. My motivations were pure, but my understanding of statecraft was limited. Every decision created new enemies, new conspiracies against me. But what was the alternative? To abandon Alexandra in her hour of greatest need? To let the old, corrupt ministers continue their destructive policies? At least I tried to serve the people, rather than my own interests.
The scandals and rumors during this period became increasingly damaging. How did they affect you personally?
They wounded me deeply, especially the lies about my relationship with the royal family. They accused me of seducing Alexandra, of corrupting the royal children. These were not just attacks on my reputation, they were attacks on people I genuinely loved. But I understood that I had become a symbol, a convenient target for all the frustrations and fears of a nation at war. When people could not strike at the real causes of their suffering, they struck at me instead.
During this tumultuous period, you seem to develop an acute awareness of your own mortality. Tell us about your prophetic visions.
The gift of seeing beyond the present moment had been with me since childhood, but during those final years the visions became more frequent and more vivid. I saw fires consuming cities, I saw the Romanov family dressed in white, walking toward a dark doorway.
What was it like to know your own death was approaching?
Terrifying and liberating in equal measure. I wrote letters to the Tsar warning him that if I was killed by nobles, his family would not survive 2 years. I was not trying to frighten him, I was simply sharing what I had seen in my dreams. But there was also a strange peace in it. I had lived fully, loved deeply, served according to my understanding. If death was coming, I would meet it as I had lived, without pretense, without regret.
You actually wrote a detailed prophecy letter shortly before your death. Can you tell us about that?
Ah, yes. My final testament to the Russian people. I wrote it knowing that I would die before the new year arrived. In it, I tried to warn of the catastrophes that would follow: revolution, civil war, the destruction of everything we had known. I predicted that if simple peasants killed me, the Romanov dynasty would endure for centuries. But if I died at the hands of nobles, well, history has shown the accuracy of that particular vision.
Let's talk about that fateful night. December 29th, 1916. You were invited to Prince Yusupov's palace. Did you sense what was coming?
I knew. Oh, I knew perfectly well what awaited me at the Moika Palace. But I went anyway, because sometimes one must walk knowingly into darkness to serve a greater purpose.
Why did you go if you knew it was a trap?
Because my death had become necessary for others to live. The conspirators believed that killing me would save Russia from revolution. They were wrong, but their intentions were not entirely evil. Sometimes we must become martyrs to our own best intentions.
What actually happened that night? The accounts vary so dramatically.
The truth is simpler and less dramatic than the legends. Yusupov and his conspirators invited me to meet his wife, though she was not even in the city. When I arrived, they offered me wine and cakes. The story about the poison, perhaps there was some attempt, but my constitution was strong from years of hard living. What killed me was not cyanide, but bullets, fired by men who were genuinely convinced they were saving their country.
In your final moments, what went through your mind?
Forgiveness. Profound, overwhelming forgiveness for these young men who thought murder could solve Russia's problems. They were acting out of love for their country, even as they committed an unforgivable act. I also thought of little Alexei, of his parents who would soon face their own terrible fate. I prayed that somehow my death might purchase their safety, though I knew in my heart it would not.
You mentioned earlier that you believed your prophecies about what would follow your death. What did you foresee for Russia?
75 years of darkness, 3 times 25 years, as I wrote in my letter. A time when brothers would kill brothers, when the land would be ruled by servants of the Antichrist, when the Orthodox faith would be nearly destroyed. But I also saw beyond that darkness. I saw a time when Russia would emerge from its trial stronger and more spiritual than before. The suffering was necessary, a great purification by fire.
Looking back from your current perspective, do you have any regrets about your life and choices?
Regret is a luxury I cannot afford. Every choice I made, every sin I committed, every miracle I performed was part of a larger tapestry. Remove any thread, and the entire pattern changes. But if I could speak to my younger self, I would say, be more careful with the hearts of others. Your gift for healing comes with a responsibility not to wound. Power, even spiritual power, corrupts when it is not balanced with humility.
Our time is drawing to a close, but before we end, I have to ask, if you could send a message to people living today, what would it be?
Do not be afraid of your own darkness. The light is most beautiful when it shines through broken things. God does not require perfection. God requires authenticity, courage, and love. And remember this, every ending is also a beginning. What appears to be death is often transformation. Trust in the larger pattern, even when you cannot see it yourself.
Grigori Rasputin, thank you for this extraordinary conversation. Your story continues to challenge and inspire us more than a century later.
The pleasure has been mine, dear Lily. May your listeners find in my words not answers but better questions.
What an incredible journey we've taken together today. Was there anything that surprised you most about our conversation with this legendary figure? Now we're going to move into our listener questions segment. Our first question comes from Marcus Thompson in London. Marcus writes, I'm fascinated by Rasputin's claim that sin and redemption are dance partners. How can someone reconcile this with traditional moral teachings? Isn't this just an excuse for bad behavior?
Marcus asks the eternal question. Let me be clear. I was never advocating for random self-indulgence or causing harm to others. When I spoke of necessary sin, I meant the courage to be fully human, rather than hiding behind masks of false piety.
That's such a nuanced distinction.
Think of it this way. A surgeon must cut flesh to heal it. Sometimes the path to spiritual health requires us to acknowledge and work through our shadow, rather than pretending it doesn't exist. The danger comes when we use this philosophy to justify cruelty or selfishness.
Our next question is from Sarah Chen in Vancouver, and it's quite personal. Sarah writes, I'm struggling with feeling worthy of love after making some serious mistakes in my life. How do I find the kind of self-forgiveness that seems to have guided you through your darkest moments?
Oh, sweet Sarah. Your question breaks my heart because I recognize that pain so well. Listen to me carefully. You are not your mistakes. You are a divine spark temporarily wearing a human form, and that spark cannot be diminished by any earthly action.
What practical steps would you suggest for someone in Sarah's situation?
Begin each morning by looking in the mirror and saying, I am learning to love myself as God loves me, completely, unconditionally, without reservation. Then find small ways to serve others, because in healing other hearts we heal our own.
Our third question comes from David Rodriguez in Mexico City. David asks, given your experience with political power and its corrupting influence, what advice would you give to modern leaders who genuinely want to serve their people?
David asks perhaps the most important question of all. Power is like fire. It can warm a home or burn it down, depending on how it is wielded. The leader who would truly serve must never forget that they are a servant first.
How can leaders maintain that servant's heart?
Spend time among the people you lead, not in palaces but in their kitchens, their workplaces, their struggles. Listen more than you speak. Remember that every decision affects real human beings with real dreams and real suffering, and never, ever believe your own propaganda.
Such wisdom from someone who witnessed the fall of an empire firsthand. Thank you for sharing these insights with our listeners. I can feel the gratitude from our audience. These questions really helped illuminate different aspects of your remarkable journey. Does anyone in our live audience have questions? I can see some eager hands. You, sir, in the third row. Let me come down to you. I love how engaged our audiences always are. It's like having a conversation with old friends who happen to be scattered across history. Hello there. What's your name? Jonathan, wonderful to meet you. What's your question for our guest? Oh, that's fascinating. Jonathan asks whether you believe your healing abilities were supernatural gifts, or if they can be explained through what we now understand about psychology and the mind-body connection.
Jonathan touches on something I've pondered for decades. I believe both explanations can be true simultaneously. What some call supernatural, others might call the natural operation of forces we don't yet fully understand.
Can you elaborate on that?
The mind's power over the body is far greater than most people realize. When I helped little Alexei, I was certainly using what you might call psychological techniques, calming his fears, giving him hope, creating an atmosphere of peace. But I also believe there are energetic connections between souls that science may eventually discover.
Any other questions? Let me find another brave soul. You, madam, with a beautiful smile. Let me make my way over there. Hello, and your name is? Maria. What a perfect name, given our conversation today. What would you like to ask? Maria wants to know how you maintained hope during the darkest periods of your life, especially when it seemed like the entire world was turning against you.
Beautiful Maria, hope is not something we maintain. It is something that maintains us if we allow it. During my darkest hours, when the newspapers printed the most vicious lies, when former friends turned away, I would remember that I was part of a much larger story.
What do you mean by that?
I knew that my sufferings, even my failures, were serving a purpose I might never fully understand. Sometimes we are called to plant trees whose shade we will never enjoy, to fight battles whose victory we will never see. This knowledge can sustain us through any darkness.
One last question. Let me find someone who hasn't spoken yet. Yes, you, sir, in the back. This is always my favorite part, getting to hear directly from you wonderful people. And your name? Robert, thank you for your patience. What's your question? Robert asks a powerful question. He wants to know what you would say to someone who feels called to a spiritual path, but is afraid of being misunderstood or rejected by others.
Ah, Robert speaks my language. The spiritual path has always been a lonely one. You will be misunderstood. That is not a possibility. It is a certainty. But ask yourself this. Would you rather be loved for who you pretend to be, or rejected for who you truly are?
That's a profound way to look at it.
The soul that is meant to find you will recognize you regardless of what others say. Trust in your calling, serve with love, and let the critics exhaust themselves with their noise. Truth has a way of surviving every storm.
What beautiful wisdom to share. Thank you, Robert, for that question. Let me make my way back to the stage now, feeling so grateful for this incredible audience participation.
Your listeners honor me with their thoughtful questions. It reminds me that the human heart remains unchanged across centuries. We all seek meaning, love, and understanding.
Before we continue, I have to ask our audience, what question resonated most deeply with you today? Now, I thought it might be fun to test our knowledge with a little quiz about our remarkable guest. What do you say, Grigori? Are you game?
Why not? After living such a controversial life, I'm curious to see what people think they know about me.
Let me get our quiz music going. Here's our first question, audience. Rasputin was born in Siberia, but what was the name of his birth village? Was it A, Pokrovskoye, or B, Verkhoturia? If you think it's A, raise your hands. Interesting. It looks like about 60% of you chose A, Grigori. What's the answer?
The majority is correct. I was born in the small village of Pokrovskoye, along the Tura River. Verkhoturia was where I later went to the monastery, a place that changed my life completely.
Excellent. Our audience knows their history. Now for question 2, and this one might surprise you. What was Rasputin's real family name before he became known as Rasputin? Was it A, Novik, or B, Romanov? Hands up for A. Oh my, this one split the room almost evenly. What's the truth?
A clever question. My family name was indeed Novik, Grigori Yefimovich Novik. Rasputin was a nickname that stuck, meaning the debauched one. Though I must say, being related to the Romanovs would have made my story quite different.
Ha! I can only imagine. You know what? I have to confess something. I got both of those right, and I'm feeling pretty proud of myself right now. But of course I got them right. I wrote the questions myself. Thank you so much for being such a good sport about our little quiz. Grigori, your willingness to engage with these questions shows the same openness that made you such a compelling figure in your lifetime. You know, it's hard to believe, but we're approaching the end of our time together. I feel like we could talk for hours more.
Listen to them. Such passion from your audience. It reminds me of my own followers. People hungry for truth, for connection, for something beyond the ordinary.
It's been such an honor having you here. As we wrap up, I'm struck by how your story challenges so many of our assumptions about power, spirituality, and human nature.
Life rarely fits into the neat categories we create for it. I was neither the saint my supporters claimed nor the demon my enemies portrayed. I was simply a man trying to serve God and help others, making mistakes along the way like every human soul.
What do you hope people will remember most about our conversation today?
That redemption is always possible, that love can emerge from the most unlikely places, and that sometimes those who appear most broken are the ones who understand healing best.
And what would you say to anyone listening who feels lost or searching?
Trust your inner voice, even when the whole world tells you it's wrong. Serve others with genuine love. And remember that every ending is also a beginning. Even death is simply a doorway to new understanding.
Grigori Rasputin, thank you for sharing your extraordinary story with us.
Thank you, dear Lily, and thank you to all who have listened with open hearts. May you find your own path to truth.
And thank you to our wonderful live audience, and to everyone listening at home, in their cars, doing chores, or wherever this conversation has found you. Before we say goodbye, let me ask you one final question. What from today's interview will stay with you long after the conversation ends? Now let's move to today's featured quote, our daily dose of wisdom to take with us. Today's quote comes from our guest himself, and it perfectly captures the essence of our conversation. Do not be afraid of your own darkness. The light is most beautiful when it shines through broken things. Let me say that again. Do not be afraid of your own darkness. The light is most beautiful when it shines through broken things. These words speak to something so profound about the human experience. Rasputin understood that our struggles, our mistakes, even our failures don't disqualify us from grace. They make us more human, more real, more capable of genuine connection with others. I keep thinking about his metaphor of light shining through broken things. Some of the most beautiful art comes from broken pottery, put back together with gold. Maybe that's what we all are, broken pieces made more beautiful by the way we've been mended. What do you think about today's quote? How might it change the way you see your own struggles? Well, friends, we really have reached the end of our journey together today. Time has this funny way of flying when we're completely absorbed in great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Background Interview. Your support means everything to us. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, or share your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you, and we especially love hearing who you'd like us to invite for future conversations. You can find links to all our other episodes in the description below. We have some absolutely fascinating series exploring different historical figures, philosophical concepts, and cultural movements. Trust me, there's something for everyone. And if you're feeling generous, you can support the show through the QR code on your screen or the links in our description. My salary depends on it, after all. These conversations are perfect for your commute, for doing housework, for those moments when you want to feed your mind while your hands are busy. Many of you tell us you listen to our episodes as a peaceful way to drift off to sleep, and honestly, I find that deeply flattering. I actually listen to our own episodes sometimes. Is that weird? There's something comforting about familiar voices discussing big ideas. It's like having a thoughtful friend, always ready for a deep conversation. Speaking of future conversations, our next guest is another absolutely fascinating historical figure. I can't reveal who yet, but I will say this. There's someone whose influence shaped the modern world in ways we're still discovering today. Until then, you can explore our other series through the links below. Each one offers a different window into human experience and wisdom. Keep asking questions, keep seeking truth, and keep being curious about the world around you. Until next time, this is Lily saying goodbye and wishing you all the best. Oh wow, that was intense. I'm actually feeling a bit drained after that conversation. You know what I really wanted to ask him but didn't get the chance? I was so curious about what he thought of how he's been portrayed in popular culture. All those movies and books and songs. Did you know there's even a Boney M song about him? Maybe someday I'll get another chance to ask him about that. Until then, keep listening, keep learning, and keep being wonderful. See you next time.